Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network, presented by our friends at Parlor Pizza. I'm your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by the one and only Sean Smith. Sean, how the heck are you?
I'm doing well, Jack Pilgrim. How are you?
Terrible. Terrible. I'm disappointed. I'm tired of this. Why do we got to do this? When you weren't able to be on the last show, we had Michael Moreno on, who was just incredible as always. And we ended the show going, hey, let's go 2-0 this week. Let's go land Tyron Stokes. Let's go win the SEC tournament. Let's go get a double bye. Let's be a number 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Let's go to the Final Four. Let's just do it. Just as optimistic of an outlook as you could possibly dream of. And then Kentucky just craps the bed in the worst way imaginable down in College Station, turning a 12-point lead where, Sean, I don't think they could have played any better. I mean, it was an unbelievable first 12 minutes of the game where their shooting numbers were just out of this world, and you have a Trent Noah catch-and-shoot 3 from the right wing. And, Sean, that's a look where if you say, hey, if there's one person on the team who gets a wide open, clean look to put Kentucky up 15 points and potentially just run away with the game, Colin Chandler's the obvious number 1, but I would put Trent Noah in the conversation to say, hey, I trust him to hit that shot and carry things the rest of the momentum the rest of the way. That turns into a 36-6 run, a 45-10 run overall to allow Texas A&M to take a 21-point lead in the second half and run away with a fought back a little bit, turns into an 11-point win, but never close, never even competitive in the second half. Just as much of a demoralizing, humiliating, whiplash, what the hell happened kind of performance for the Cats I can remember in who knows how long.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reoccurring theme at this point, right? Like there's a pattern. They play poorly, they play great. They play beyond poorly from what they did at one point, and then they play great again. And it's becoming, I mean, I guess the words would be kind of mentally exhausting to follow, right? Because I know that we've watched seasons and we've watched teams across college basketball over the years that have been literally hot or cold, that they've had their ups and they've had their downs. But as far as the highs and lows of this season, Jack, I don't know if I ever really recall one that made me feel as not really I don't really know what to expect anytime I see it. And it can change at the snap of your fingers. It can be an entire game. It can be a good stretch, and then it can be some of the worst basketball that you've ever seen. It can be some of the worst lineup substitutions that you've ever seen. It can be, not calling timeouts to kill runs. There's just little things throughout the course of the season that I still don't know where to put them. I still don't know if I'm confident. I don't know if I'm more confident in making it to the second weekend or not. I don't know if I ever recall going into a tournament where I really, truly didn't know where to put my confidence meter at, that they can get to a second weekend, or they could also lose the first round in the NCAA tournament. I mean, we're staring down now, Florida coming to town, of this being a possible 14-loss season for Kentucky. And outside of the COVID year, when was the last non-20 win regular season? Was it maybe Billy Gillespie's first year, I believe? Mm-hmm. Is that the last time it happened? Because even the following year where they went to the NIT, I know they won over 20 games. But I have no words for what happened last night, because I thought they were on the verge of really gaining control and really going into that closing first half with some momentum. But I've never seen something flip so quickly, not just momentum, but the result. At halftime, I was like, I have no confidence that Kentucky's going to be able to fight their way back from this one, because A&M just took it.
Have you ever, at any level, coaching middle school, high school, college basketball, have you ever seen a collapse of that nature to where the momentum flips truly from Kentucky can run away with this and turn this into a 30-point win with how things are trending and the shots they're making, and just knowing, I mean, Texas A&M had lost 6 of their last 8. Total momentum on Kentucky's side and in position to kind of go for the kill shot and just make them roll over and die. To go from that moment to not just a flip, not just turn it into a back and forth and kind of like what Kentucky has done where they're down 18 and turn it into a game-winning opportunity at the very end, but a true total 180 flip upside down on their head collapse. I don't know if I remember one.
I mean, in basketball, like not with teams that I believe are, I mean, I don't think Texas A&M's significantly better than Kentucky. I don't think Texas A&M's a great basketball team. So that's probably the more surprising part. I don't know if I ever recall it happening so quickly, right? And like it's right there. Cats led 30-18 with 8 minutes left in first half. And like I said, by halftime, you're having a completely different game. Not a 4-point lead or a tie game. You're talking an entirely different outcome just in 8 minutes. That's the part that I don't think I've ever seen before. I mean, I know in the course of UK history, there have been some really incredible comeback victories where Kentucky's regained momentum in the second half and things. But from a game to be looking like you're cruising and you're doing some things very well for the first 12 minutes to just completely just collapse, and not only collapse, but you just basically quit and showed some of those qualities that we saw early in December and at other points throughout the season. It's just very hard to explain. As a coaching staff and things, it's probably even harder to grasp and wrap your mind around when you're sitting there in post-game meetings last night or on the flight home, because you're probably wondering, okay, what in the world just happened to us? But like I said a couple of weeks ago when we did our live show at Parlor Pizza, you can't keep canceling out success. And that is 100% what this season has been. When it comes to games of quality opponents, SEC or Power 4, it has been win one, canceled out with a loss that just leaves you scratching your head. You beat Vandy at home and have an incredible performance on Saturday, and you come back for the midweek game, and this is how you perform going into the closing game of the regular season and the defending national champion coming in your building. Just not being able to sustain success, but also canceling it out at the same time, Jack, is a very frustrating thing to follow. And it has to be a very frustrating thing to be a part of.
And I think Brandon Ramsey unfortunately nailed it, because I didn't want to believe any of it, but he's kind of said along the way at the highest of high moments and the lowest of low moments that it's never as good, never as bad as it kind of feels and appears to be on the surface as things are happening in real time. Because you do just want to believe, right? Like, you as a Kentucky fan, me as a Kentucky fan, you as a Kentucky fan, you want to ignore the bad habits and the crippling, just like, this is a glaring flaw that I don't think is going to get fixed. You just kind of want to see signs and say, oh, well, I can fix you. You just kind of have that like toxic girlfriend kind of vibe to Kentucky basketball. You've seen that with this team the entire time, and just hope that every breakthrough is the breakthrough, and that every setback isn't the one that's going to be just the absolute backbreaker that tanks the season. And at the end of the day, it just they present themselves as a totally average, middle of the road SEC team, and that's what their current standings in the SEC tournament projections going into the weekend. As anywhere as high as number 4, anywhere as low as number 10, they are a middle of the road, totally average SEC team in a year that the SEC is down. It'd be different if this is last year, where it's a juggernaut, historic high of an SEC. That's not the case. This is a mediocre SEC, and Kentucky is a mediocre SEC team in the middle of a mediocre SEC team. And it's just a reality that I don't think any Kentucky fan really wants to grasp, but that's just the reality.
Yeah, this is a league that's got one team that's capable of winning a national championship, getting to a Final Four, in my opinion. And we know who that is. They're coming to town this weekend. But when you look at this thing from a whole standpoint, Jack, just the emotional ride that we've gone on with this team, it's been hard. Like, they have given Kentucky fans good moments. Tennessee at Rupp, great moment. There have been good moments built within the struggles of what they've had. It's just the inconsistency and never knowing what you're going to get. It's not been something to where it's been really hard to predict what Kentucky's going to do. It's been really hard to go into a matchup and say, okay, is this one of those bad ones that's going to happen, or is this one of those ones that you're going you're going to end the game and you're going to listen to a press conference and you're going to be sitting there 2 hours later thinking, maybe they've turned a corner, because we thought they had during that stretch that they had in January, and then they beat Tennessee at Rupp. But then the bad comes back. And to go and lose at Vandy the way that they did and then completely flip it and the margin of victory be what it was on Saturday just tells the tale of what the season has been. Like, that's the evidence in one opponent for how off and how on it has been for this team. Has injuries played into some things? 100% it has. But at the end of the day, Jack, it's still very frustrating. And I find myself, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, I want them to go on a run. Yes, I would love that. But at the other side of me is like, please, God, just let it be over with and move on.
True, man.
And regroup and hopefully get this thing right, because it's just been such a just wave of emotions from highs and lows that I know happens. And I know from the coaching side of things, you don't really get into the emotions of a season, but this one's just been different, man. Like, you're talking the highest of highs, and then the valley comes, and then you're in the valley for a minute, and then you see some light, and here you come again, and the next thing you know, you're in a loop. And it's exhausting, and I know it's exhausting for Kentucky fans. 100% it is.
I think something that exhausts me about this is just the constant, and again, I think there have been times that Pope in general does some things unbelievably well that separates him as a truly special basketball mind and in-game coach. But there are also just some maddening things that I have a hard time seeing how he's going to be able to overcome that unless we have a real come to Jesus, look at himself in the mirror moment this offseason as kind of like a kind of fork in the road. And like, part of me is kind of excited for us to get to that point and see like how much is he going to grow from this experience. I think, and I talked to one of my very intelligent basketball buddies of mine that knows way more than me, probably wouldn't want me mentioning him by name on this show, talking in this way, but said that Pope at his best knows how to get the most out of his guys and instill confidence in guys that maybe don't feel that they belong at Kentucky, wearing a Kentucky uniform, the Ansley Almanors, go down the list of the, mid-major guys that Kentucky pulls from and turns into really solid, productive pieces. But in terms of keeping that fire lit and getting these guys to be locked in and engaged, Pope tonight talking on his radio show saying, we're really, really special when we're locked in 100% of the time and play with 100% intensity and 100% physicality 100% of the time. But when we're 99% intense and 99% focus and 99% this, that we really struggle and we can't be that. How are we game 30 talking about focus and intensity and being able to have that want to when you're wearing a Kentucky jersey, making as much money as these kids are doing, we're in March. It is March 4th right now. Next week is the start of Nashville in a time that is just bliss for all Kentucky fans. March Madness, the most magical time of the year. How are we talking about those things, man? Like, and that's something that if you can't get these guys to buy in with that, where do you turn? So that's the thing that that's a foundational struggle. That's a deeply rooted, where does it get fixed kind of thing. And in terms of bringing in elite talent, is it a talent thing? If you were to go get a number one recruit or the number one guy in the portal or whatever, does the talent kind of fix that gap there, or would the buy-in be even worse with a guy more talented because he feels that, I don't know. I'm really just I'm struggling with that. And there is kind of just this hourglass, the sand running out and going, it won't be the worst thing in the world to just see this get a nice little hard reset this offseason.
Well, I think because we all know that this doesn't end with number 9. Right. And the years where that you're not good enough are very hard. But this one has been just, like I said, there's still been good moments throughout this run, and there's still going to be memorable things like the Denham game and beating Tennessee on the road, like Malachi's shot at LSU. Like, there are moments that have been rewarding to follow, but the overall product of this thing is, I don't want to say that they've been inconsistent, because they have been consistent. they have been consistent with the pattern that they're on. They play well, they play terrible. They play well, they play terrible. That's consistency. They're consistent in what they've rolled out on the floor. It's just I've never seen two polar opposites of good and bad with one team, where you can go on runs and score 90 plus and beat a team that just absolutely just waxed you a month ago. And then you come back and you have a great stretch to begin the game. And I know some of this we can talk is about, why are you taking 4 guys out? Why are you making so many substitutions and things? Why are you getting this pattern of taking energy off the floor, momentum off the floor? And then why are you letting runs develop and not kill momentum? Like, those are coaching things that we can critique. But it just, even in the moment that we're this far in, 30 games, it still feels like Mark Pope. I about said March Pope. Maybe that'd be nice if that could be like a name at some point as it turns into March Pope. But you're just grasping for anything that you can. And I don't know if he's really, truly ever established what this team is, because as confused as we all feel watching them, I would say that there's probably quite a bit of confusion when you're leading them too. Now, I will say that Pope has gotten better with the PR things of the emotions of press conferences and moments, like from the beginning of the year till now. So that's some improvement that you've seen that you hope continues to carry over to year 3. But right now you're at a crossroads with this thing, because you're at a crossroads of, I don't know how much of this I want back. And you can't bring it all back, and I don't think you can bring a lot of it back, because you got to find a way to spend your money and get return on investment better next year than what you got this year, because this did not fit.
LG&E and KU will always fit with you, because they know when the lights go out, it can feel like a full court press, but staying in the know is an easy win. Update your phone number in the LG&E and KU mobile app or in My Account. If the power goes out, you'll get play-by-play text from 454-358 with outage updates, safety information, and time estimates for power restoration. Can't text? No problem. We'll call the landline on your account with the same update, so you're never left in the dark, because in the dark, there's no defense. But with LG&E and KU, you've always got a team working to get the lights back on and let you know the game plan. Update your number today at lge-ku.com/outages. Sean, the game was what it was. Mo Diabate played really well. He kind of went into takeover mode there at the very end and tried to make things competitive once things were totally uncompetitive. I appreciated that, especially with Ramadan. Mark Pope said tonight that his first sub of the game was actually right when sundown hit, and they were able to get him fed for the very first time of the day. So mid-game, he ate his very first meal. So the dynamic with that is difficult, and I appreciate his fight and the heart that he played with. It makes me more frustrated with everybody else that they didn't play with the same fight and intensity that he did. But, Otega-Oweh, the counting stats were there: 24 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. Didn't think he played all that great. I thought shot selection was bad. I thought, his motor, man, is just, 35% amazing, looks like an absolute world beater. 65% of the time kind of feels like he's okay, but just not the 99%, 100% thing that Mark Pope was talking about. Just doesn't feel like it's that constant Otega get downhill, I'm a freak of nature athlete, I'm going to outwork you. I just don't get that the majority of the game at this point, and that does frustrate me, even in a statistical good night for him. Denzel Aberdeen, 9 points, 8 assists, 1 turnover. Solid, nothing world beater. I love the assist to turnover ratio, but that was what it was. But outside of that, man, just not good enough. Like you just didn't get enough from anybody else. Brandon Garrison, gave some good minutes, one of his better all-around performances, but he really came up in some untimely things. Any other parting thoughts on the Texas A&M game, so we can just put that absolute cluster in the garbage and focus on what it would take to beat Florida and SEC tournament standings and all the stuff that actually matters this point forward?
Yeah, I mean, we know at this point that for Kentucky to win basketball games, especially as this thing comes down the closing stretch here and you get on even on neutral floors, Jack, that I believe you got to have Otega-Oweh playing well and efficient. You got to have Colin Chandler making shots, which did not happen last night. 3 points, 1 of 5 from 3 in 34 minutes. That's not going to get it done for Kentucky. Aberdeen, I know 9 and 8, but you probably need that to be closer to 14, 15 points. And then we know that, like I said, Oweh, Chandler, and Aberdeen, I think the guards have to play very well for Kentucky to win now that the calendar's in March. Then regardless of opponent, those three have got to perform and play very well. You got, like you said, you got the game for Mo Diabate, and very impressive that he's able to go out, and do that. And I know that's not easy to do, but you just got to have better consistency, I think, from the backcourt across the board. And we know that those three really carry the torch for what Kentucky wants to do. And if one of them plays well, you're probably getting a result like you had last night. You got to have them all play well, and I think that's probably the deciding factor. And when the season ends at some point is, did Colin Chandler not make shots? Did Denzel Aberdeen not have a good night? Was Oweh inefficient, still getting his numbers, but not really the best efficiency? Like, that's the night that's going to catch Kentucky.
Yeah. All right. So Florida coming up this Saturday, Senior Day. Say goodbye to Otega, Oweh, Denzel Aberdeen, and Walker Horn and Zach Tao, if we want to give them credit where it's due for their own successful Kentucky careers. Anything that stood out to you in that first trip down to Gainesville that opens up the possibility of pulling off this upset that would fortunately put Kentucky, lock up a single bye, and even still keep the door open for that number 4 spot to start on Friday?
It's probably the consistency of the season, right? Where going into this, my mind's telling me to not think Kentucky can win, but the blueprint and the pattern is telling me that to not be shocked if they come out and find a way. Now, Florida is playing like one of the 4 best teams in college basketball, and they have been getting better and better each and every week. And to me, when it comes to Florida, Jack, they just – elite teams, when it gets to a certain point in the season and they start to separate themselves, they don't mess around with the opponent. They take care of business, and they get the job done. Some of Kentucky's best teams over the years, we always knew – how they handled the bad teams on their schedule, how they handled the games that going into it, or beat a bad team bad is what I always say. And Florida has started to do those things to people in an SEC, like you mentioned a moment ago, that is not what it was a year ago, but Florida has kind of risen to the top of this thing and shown that they're just a step above. Now, Kentucky in that matchup, it was one of those games, Jack, where when it got to a point in the first half and it got to 15-16, I was kind of expecting it to balloon to 30 and kind of go like Vanderbilt did, but it didn't happen. So there was some confidence built there, but that Kentucky's front court has to show up on Saturday. It has to be a collective effort. It can't just be Malachi Moreno. The effort that you got from Mo Diabate last night, it doesn't have to be the exact same, but you got to get some of that along with Malachi, and Garrison's got to give a spurt too. Now, I just talked about Kentucky's backcourt. If the front court plays well, and the backcourt doesn't, Kentucky's still losing the game. But for Kentucky to beat Florida, even on its home floor, I think that all parts have to be in play. But Kentucky's got to match physicality with bodies and depth in the front court to be able to handle this one. And I would expect Kentucky to play inspired in the final home game of the season. I would expect this one to be a single-digit game. I don't know if I'm confident enough to pick Kentucky to win it, given the way Florida's playing, but I think that it wouldn't shock me if this comes down to the final 4 or 5 minutes and Kentucky's got a shot to win it.
Does it help at all? And again, we're just trying to find reasons to be optimistic at this point, but does it intrigue you at all that Florida has everything locked up already? SEC regular season crown is done. The number 1 seed in the SEC tournament, double bye, probably have guaranteed a top 2 seed in the NCAA tournament at this point. I have a hard time believing that they're going to fall below that 2 seed line, knowing just where their momentum is, the wins that they've stacked up to this point. Like, their resume is rock solid. Anything about kind of letting their foot off the gas a little bit going into the regular season finale and focusing on SEC tournament?
Well, I'm wondering how much, Todd Golden is maybe talking about last year's game at Rupp Arena that Kentucky won. That was his trip to Rupp Arena. That was that Florida team's only game against Kentucky a season ago, with some faces that are back from that team. I would say I would say any other moment that I would probably think that there was chance for a let up, but then I saw Todd Golden talking crap to John Calipari the other day on the sidelines, and I'm like, no, that dude's locked in. And just has an edge about him that I think you need to be successful, especially as a defending national champion. You've got to have an edge about you, and he wears it. And his team is getting better and better as the season's gone along, and they're peaking at the right time. So I don't expect Florida to come in here and let their foot off the gas, because it's still Rupp Arena, it's still Kentucky. And they're still fighting for possibly a number 1 seed and things when it comes down to, postseason NCAA tournament. I know where they are and the run that they've been on. But I'm assuming Todd Golden's coming here and thinking, close the regular season with the win at Rupp Arena, go into the SEC tournament and win it, and then just continue to build momentum going to the NCAA tournament, which is what Kentucky needs. Kentucky needs the game where Florida comes out and punches its best, because I do want to see if Kentucky has some fight in themselves to punch back on senior day. And, the SEC's locked up, number 1 seed in the SEC tournament, but it still feels like Florida's got a lot to play for just because they're playing so well right now.
In terms of game plan, Sean, obviously it was not the hope that Florida was going to go out and make 10 threes and let Xavier Lee go for 22 on 7 of 12 shooting and Urban Klafchar go for 19 on 5 of 11 from 3. But that was definitely a game plan move when you're looking big picture at their shooting numbers. They entered that game as one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in college basketball, and really just destroyed teams inside. I would argue that Kentucky actually did a pretty bang-up job for in terms of the interior. I thought we got really solid performances for Malachi Moreno, especially. Mohamed Diabate played relatively well. Did a lot of good things, but it was just the backcourt that absolutely cooked, Kentucky this last time out in Gainesville. Anything about, do you change up the game plan? Was it fluky how Florida beat you the first time around in Gainesville, or are we going to see something totally different this time?
Well, I think the attention to detail has to really start on the defensive end of the floor the next few days, just be given that Florida scored 111 and 108 in its last 2 games.
Dude, they're such a wagon.
It's just one of those things that when you're peaking and you know it, and that's the thing. When I go back to it, and I'm talking about John Calipari in Arkansas in that game and the moment that happened on the sidelines, but then in the press conference, Cal even had to just talk about how good Florida has been and how well they've looked on tape and how well they're playing. Like, to know that a dude was literally talking smack to you, and then you had to come sit down your post-game press conference and say, these things just happen. And they're really good, and they're playing very well, and he's doing an excellent job. Like, that Cal's probably sitting there thinking, just biting his tongue and trying not to say those things. But the truth of the matter is Florida has been playing incredibly well, all of SEC play, but especially since late January when they've gone on their run here in league play. Now, that should be enough alone to motivate Kentucky and get the best effort that we've seen all season in that building. But I guess my question, Jack, is what kind of juice is going to be in the building? Is it going to be the same juice as the Denham game against Tennessee, where it was such a massive moment for the season? Are you going to get Rupp Arena's best? Are you going to get BBN's best? Or are we all kind of checked out at this point? Are we all expecting Florida to come in and win by 20 points? Like I said, I expect on senior day, Otega Oweh, Denzel Aberdeen, and this crew to do enough to give Kentucky a under 8 timeout in this BA game, where you're looking at, if you get a couple of stops and you make a couple of shots, you've got a chance late. I don't expect Kentucky to lay down and die at home in the final regular season game of this year. I fully expect it to be competitive. I'm not picking Kentucky to win, but I think that they're going to at least be competitive in the moment, which would be a nice thing to go into SEC tournament play. If you're able to pull off a win, it could be a huge confidence boost going into the league tournament for you. But just the way Florida's playing right now, Jack, and given what we saw Kentucky give up last night on the defensive end of the floor, you're probably going to have to score 88 to 93 to win this game on Saturday.
A lot has been said and criticized, and fans have just lost their minds about the fatigue quotes from Pope, and I think that's obviously going to play a big part in just knowing how deep and physical and just the way they come at you in waves, the way Florida does, and as you said, the way they're scoring, it is going to take an absolute 40-minute complete start to finish at probably Kentucky's best performance of the season to pull that one off. To do that, they're going to have to be fresh. They like the fatigue factor that Pope keeps bringing up with I think the substitution pattern stuff is a little bit blown out of proportion, but I do think that there's something to be said about when Brandon Garrison says in post-game radio that they lose their focus and that they kind of do run out of gas. Like how Mark Pope is, again, we've talked about this and said this over and over again, is, growing up, playing under Rick Pitino in college and just knowing the legend that is Rick Pitino's practices and how he makes you, run until you vomit and those things, how we can constantly bring up fatigue and how conditioning can be such an issue and having to maximize these little 4 or 5 minute stretches that, once we get to minute 6 and 7, their production falls off a cliff. So we really try to maintain every minute and every second they're on the floor to be as efficient as possible. Man, like we've seen John Calipari lead a Kentucky team in 2012 with a 6-man rotation, 7 extended. How are we game 30 talking about conditioning and those things, and how much does that bother you as a coach personally to hear those fatigue things, knowing kind of like how much you spent from day one working on that with your own team?
I don't like it. I mean, I'm not a fan of it, just because in today's college basketball and the things that Kentucky has when it comes to post-game treatment the next day and all these things, that I just don't like hearing that fatigue is being used as an excuse at any point, because it's not like Mark. When you look at the minutes that are being played for some guys, I mean, it's not crazy, right? Like, I mean, Colin Chandler, I know, played a lot of minutes last night and things, but when you look at the overall thing, like Mo Diabate is not eating up a ton of minutes. Overall, just, Yelovich starts games but plays 13 minutes. Malachi Moreno is playing 22 minutes. Now, the big three in the guards in the backcourt, those are all north of 30 guys. And this is where I come back to guard play. When I'm talking guard play in March and NCAA tournaments, it's not always a collection of guards, right? Like, the year that Kemba Walker went on his run with UConn and the other years that we've seen teams go on runs, it's always been like a lead guard that plays very, very well over a consistent run. Kentucky doesn't have that to where just one guy can kind of carry it. That's why I'm saying that guards have to play well, meaning all of them. Like all three of them, in my opinion, have to play very well for Kentucky to have success. And I don't want to buy the fatigue point of this, because everybody's going through and playing a grind of 31 regular season games. Everybody else is playing SEC games. I don't want to lean into fatigue, because I don't know what practice preparation looks like for this team. I don't know what the day or 2 days before, how competitive they are in practice. I'm sure they're managing things well. When it comes down to it, playing 32, 33, 34 minutes, Jack, the best teams in college basketball are going to run their starting guards out there for 33, 34 minutes in the NCAA tournament for 6 straight and try to win a national championship. And I don't see that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking up the box scores of like what we just talked about, that Mississippi State game. Yeah, looking up how much they're Josh Hubbard played 36 minutes. Like other star players play a crap ton of minutes. Ruben Chinyelu 31 minutes. Boogie Flan 29. Like Florida's deeper, so they don't have to, and they are so balanced, and they are so. I mean, they don't have to beat you in those ways. But every other team, the Arkansas game we were just talking about, Billy Richmond played 39 minutes in that one. Like good players have to play a bunch. It comes across as sore loser stuff, man. It drives me crazy. I don't want to hear that excuse and the the Saturday to Tuesday stuff that Pope was talking about, how the team's lack of depth right now, and with the personnel struggles that they're dealing with, how the quick turnaround from Saturday to Tuesday is really getting into their legs and wearing them down. It's like, what do you think's happening a week from right now? I mean, we get Saturday, and then from that point forward, it is potentially Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Is that going to be the excuse that time around? Man, it's just, it comes across horrible timing.
Well, I mean, it certainly doesn't give you confidence entering the SEC tournament next week, right? Like if you're saying fatigue's a problem because you're going to play and play again, and if you want to win, you're playing again, and then you're actually getting into a window as you get into Saturday where you're playing 2 games in less than 18 hours, given on what time possibly that you would play the Saturday game. So quick turnarounds are a part of it. And scouting reports on top of scouting reports are a part of it this time of year for anyone that's playing postseason basketball. Like the quick turnaround that you got to have guys ready. NCAA tournament, Jack, could be a Thursday, Saturday, or a Friday, Sunday, and you could be playing late on Thursday and early on Saturday. So whatever you're doing Thursday night, Friday is about recovery and then mental preparation for what you're doing on Saturday. Everybody's going to be going through the same thing, and I just don't think that you want to be sitting – now, what I was saying about the PR stuff, that he has gotten better. Like, I can handle fatigue conversations. Like, that's at least something that's on the floor and talking about the game. It was the other stuff early in the season where we're like, okay, why are we talking about this right now? So at least we're beyond that. At least we can sit down here and talk about the minutes that are being played, and if it's too much or if it's not enough. I just don't want it to be an excuse, because it's not like that Mark Pope is just playing 6 or 7 players. He's playing a lot of guys. And taking 4 guys out at once off a group and going into – and when you have a run or you have had some momentum and then the game flipping on you isn't fatigue. That's not what got you in those moments. Fatigue didn't give up the 36 to whatever run that they went on from – mid first half through second half. That's not fatigue problems. That's just losing and letting go of the rope at a stretch of play and then not regaining any type of momentum. And that's more of a basketball thing than fatigue, in my opinion.
Something that could, on paper, would help with these fatigue problems, the rotation problems, the depth problems that Mark Pope is talking about is didn't get to get your take on Jaden Quaintance potentially coming back. Cam Williams also trending in the right direction. We got 2 pretty substantial updates from Mark Pope, especially on the Cam Williams front, that Cam has started running for the very first time after breaking his foot in that Texas matchup back in January. So how does that play into all of this for you personally, Sean, as you navigate what Kentucky needs, what Kentucky has currently, and what, kind of the gap between the two of what if Jaden can come in and, replace those the BG minutes, and if Cam Williams is there to replace those Trent Noah minutes, or whatever the case is that going to be enough to have fans dreaming big, or has it just been too much time with both those guys off the floor?
They're better players than the guys that are playing, and we all know that. I just don't know if we're at a point. Cam at least got a lot of basketball under his belt before the injury, so there was at least almost 2/3 of a season that was kind of already played and had and developed, while Jaden's got 1 game really, and in a few minutes here and there in early SEC play. So I think it's harder to look at Jaden Quaintance and think that the impact can be significant for Kentucky, because what's it taking away? Now, I know there are people that probably like Garrison to maybe play less. That's not a secret. I just don't know how disruptive it could be for your team at this point. You dealt with it. You got him back around late December, and then he's gone again. You've had no consistency or rhythm established with him in the rotation whatsoever, and now you want to do it at the most pivotal part of the season. I just don't know if that's good for anyone at this point. although you're talking about a possible future lottery pick, I get the intrigue, and especially when you've not played great basketball over the course of the season, I just don't know if either side really benefits from it at this point. Cam, a little more, just because there was something at least established. That's a familiar face that's been in the lineup and the rotation and things for the most of the season and started some games. So that one probably is a little bit easier to move into things. Just not sure where you go with the Quaintance thing, because if it's 8-9 minutes a game, I don't know what the role actually looks like, or if it's a little bit more. I don't know at this point, given what has been missed and acclimated to the game. Jack, he wasn't acclimated to the game when he went out. He had a really good first game, but when scouting reports started to show up and things, there was no acclimation whatsoever to playing college basketball at Kentucky this season. And now you're possibly doing it on where it's win or go home. It's really difficult to manage for everybody.
I'd say the only that almost works in his favor with how things unfolded in the St. John's game, because it was an exact scenario of how things would play out for him to return in the NCAA tournament. No tape, recent tape. Nobody knows what his conditioning looks like. Nobody knows what his fit would look like in terms of the non-Jalen Lowe current setup of this group, with Denzel Aberdeen as the guy and Otega playing better and Colin Chandler playing, hitting shots the way that he wasn't earlier in the season. Like, it's a brand new team from when we saw Jaden, but we know Jaden's a freak athlete. We know he's going to go in and take up a ton of space, set hard screens, roll hard, catch lobs, be a switchable big, all the things that just come with his physicality and his size at 6'11", 260 pounds with a freak, vertical. So we do have at least a baseline of what it looks like to see just brand new, fresh out the box Jaden Quaintance without a whole lot of practice under his belt. So that almost makes me more confident that if you say, hey, Jaden, we need the 5 best minutes of your freaking life in this round of 32 matchup against whomever. I like that a lot. With Cam, it is almost like you're playing with house money, because you would be asking him to come in and make one shot, to come in and get one defensive stop, be a versatile, switchable defender for kind of that unique Nate Ament kind of matchup. If you get a longer wing or something like that's really been problematic for Kentucky here down the stretch, that Kentucky hasn't had a counter to those types of talents. Can we throw just a new unique defensive look out there with Cam? So I think you would be able to lean a little bit harder into Jaden than Cam, but both of them, I think it's how much of it is just about morale, Sean? How much of it is to see Cam Williams, after going down with a freaking broken foot? We saw Kerr Kriisa do the exact same thing a year ago, and how much we talked about the heart and intensity. But then, but if I were to come back and play, then I'd be burning my red shirt, and then I can't get that extra year of NIL money. And that kind of started clouding his judgment with that. And then he's no longer here with us, and that was the last we ever got to see Kerr Kriisa in a Kentucky uniform. This case is, think of how hard he has worked to get back, and just to say, hey, if I can play 5 minutes for this team in the NCAA tournament, and it helps this team win a basketball game, I'm going to do that. I think you as a coach, how much would that inspire the rest of your guys if something similar happened in your locker room?
I mean, I can see where it could be inspiring for your team to kind of get a new burst of energy or a new look, especially on the defensive end of the floor. I just know how. Here's my problem, and my concern with it is I still feel Mark Pope struggles to manage lineups and substitutions and patterns when it comes to how they've played without pieces. So when you add a couple more, does it make it even more difficult? And do we get more of the not playing the right guys, or sticking with guys too long, or quick pulls just to stay with numbers, or stay with whatever this analytics are saying to do, or with lineups? So I think that's the challenging side of it. I'm a firm believer that when it comes down to it, as a head coach, there are roles that you delegate. And like I said, I don't know who controls it on the bench, but there are assistants that should be keeping track of lineups and substitutions and things and making recommendations and maybe putting guys in and out. I don't know who's doing that for Kentucky, but at times I just feel like, Jack, that guys go in and I'm like, okay, I don't think Kentucky really needed to make a substitution at that point in the game, or you didn't need to take that much off the floor at this point. So adding more to it maybe raises a red flag to me that you could get more of that shuffling to where you're like, okay, why did we – don't ever kill your own momentum is what I always tell myself. Like, if your tongue is hanging out and we're on a 16-0 run, you better call it yourself, because I'm not. Like, I'm not ending my own run here. Like, when they score, something happens, now I'll get you. But I just feel like at times that we kind of put our own fire out. And having other people, and I get it, managing that is probably the biggest question mark I have, because you've not had the games to manage it leading up to the most pivotal point of your season. But then again, what does Kentucky have to lose?
That's another part of it for me. It's like, man, is the team that you just saw crumble and collapse the way they did in College Station, do you think that they're going to make it to Sweet 16 right now? I don't personally see how that this team reeks of a round of 32 loss stinker in wherever. Can Jaden Quaintance be the difference in a round of 32 and a Sweet 16? I personally think so. Can Cam Williams those small stretches, and if it's a momentum boost or a just morale raise, whatever the case is, can that be enough to turn a Sweet 16 into an Elite 8? Can that be the difference in a run? That's the hope. That's it might be hopium, whatever, but that's the hope that you're sitting in right now with one game left in the regular season, a week away from potentially starting in the NCAA or SEC. Put your money where your mouth is, Sean. Cam Williams, Jaden Quaintance. Yes, yes, no, no, yes, no, no, yes.
I think one of them plays for sure. I could see one. I don't know on both. I don't know.
You got to say which one. I mean, that's part of that's.
I mean, you're the insider guy here. Like, you're the one that's. I read your stuff, so I'll let you call it. Jaden Quaintance.
I'm gonna say both. I think both play. I do. And this was before I even heard Pope talk tonight, but I just been hearing good stuff on both of them. The vibes are very good in terms of how hard they're working. You know, there are benchmarks for both of them to, okay, well, let's try this and see how it responds, how his foot responds, how his knee responds to this. Oh, it responded well. Okay, well, now let's try this. Let's try this. And the each step that they've taken along the way, they've passed those and cleared those benchmarks with flying colors to get to a point now where we are a week away from potentially starting the SEC tournament, and we are talking ramp-up process, where we are talking how does Cam Williams transition from jogging to doing like organized contact stuff to skill drills and those things. I don't expect if Cam is cleared officially ready to go, and I do think that clearance could come like this week, in terms like at the end of the week, in terms of, hey, you have been cleared to begin the ramp up process to return to play. I don't think that he's going to practice a whole lot, because I don't think every extra second he's on the floor is that he's not competing in a game is just an added risk for him for re-injury. If he's going to do it, they want to make sure it is, game reps in the SEC tournament, game reps in the NCAA tournament. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on when that clearance does happen. It could be kind of a quick switch. with Jaden, the thing that concerns me with him is that he has been out since January 7th. He has done no conditioning, he's done some bike and just loose, staying loose things, but he is not in game shape whatsoever. So that would be probably a good week and a half that he would probably have to get started now and get him ready for I don't see any scenario where he's ready for the SEC tournament, but I could see him rolling out there for the round of 64. I do. I really do think that could be something that we monitor. And Cam Williams, does Kentucky get up on Thursday and Wednesday in the SEC tournament? They're playing in that stupid 9-16 game that the women's team did today, and they get up by 30. Does Cam Williams play 5 minutes at the very end?
And that's probably how you introduce it, and that would be ideal if you can introduce it that way, and instead of in meaningful minutes. I guess the thing that I find myself coming back to after talking is, what does Kentucky have to lose? Am I really that worried about lineups and rotations? Because at this point, whatever has happened has not really been the blueprint to go on a run. So maybe trying something new and maybe you find lightning in a bottle if it plays out in your favor. At this time of year, everybody's trying to put their best product on the floor, right? You want to be playing your best version of yourself at this point in the season. And if you find it a week from now, it's not too late to find it. That goes for everyone in postseason basketball.
Yeah. While we're focused on the rest of this run and what the possibilities are, we'll do quickly. What do you think the final SEC standing looks like where Kentucky starts? Do they lock up the single, or are we starting Wednesday?
I mean, what are the scenarios that has to play out? Because I know it's such a wide range of 4 to 10. I mean, if they get a win Saturday, then that's great, right? That puts them in a position to help themselves. But given the opponent that they're playing, Jack, I don't know if anybody's really overly confident that Kentucky's getting a win on Saturday. So is it going to have to come down to needing some help elsewhere?
You need that Tennessee Vanderbilt game is the most important outside of ours. Kentucky has to win, or if they lose, odds are 85% likely that they start on Wednesday. Sucks, but that's just the reality. If they win, I don't think it's not 85%, but it's more likely than not that you'd have to have luck work the other way. But that Tennessee Vanderbilt game is the big one that fans should be keeping an eye on. Tennessee has to lose that one. Tennessee needs to lose. Vanderbilt has to pull off that upset in Knoxville, because Tennessee's sitting at 11-6 right now. They would drop to that big, massive group of 10-7 teams right now, and Kentucky would own that tiebreaker and slide them up into single bye territory. So you would feel pretty darn good.
That's if Kentucky wins too, right?
That would be even if, that helps for the double bye.
Yeah,
but it's going to take a lot of luck, man. It's going the ball's going to have to bounce their way this weekend.
What's the likelihood of the single if Kentucky loses? Is that just a Thursday or playing Thursday? Is that?
I know Adam Luckett did the full.
When you have a wide range from 4 to 10, I know that there's a lot of outcomes at play. That if you can climb as high as 4, be 10, there's a lot of outcomes to impact wherever you slide, win or lose.
So the current probabilities right now are a 24% chance at a number 9 seed, number 10 seed, 23% chance, number 4 seed, 13% chance. Can go all the way up to number 5 with 11%, number 6, 10%, number 8, 11%. I mean, just seriously, the possibilities are just all over the place.
So Wednesday, as of right now, Wednesday's the most likely given who they're playing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you got to go get a win to at least bring everything else into play. If they weren't playing Florida, I'd obviously have a little bit more. And maybe that's the momentum that Kentucky needs in this. Maybe that's the push, because if you're playing this game on Saturday and then you got to gear up and you got to go play on Wednesday in the SEC tournament, I mean, Nashville would love it because Kentucky fans would be packing the building a day earlier than we have. But I still feel it'd be really hard for them to advance. It'd be really hard to get to Saturday if you're having to play on Wednesday. Hell, getting to Friday.
Just go win Saturday. Just go win it. Go pull off the absolute unexpected miracle and beat Florida. Get them while they're overlooking and getting excited. Again, we're just not likely, but this team is weird. They do really, really weird things. Kentucky, historically speaking, does unbelievably well in this regular season finale. They just always freaking win. Just let the odds play in your favor in that way, and let history push you across the finish line, and a win pretty confidently, 6th seed most likely, if you can beat Florida, and just let everything else be chalk. You're looking most likely to 6th seed, but you can play all the way up to a number 4, especially if Tennessee loses. I think the best case scenario this weekend is Kentucky wins and Tennessee loses in that Vanderbilt matchup, and then you essentially lock up a 4, assuming some other things, chalky things, bounce your way. But that's the plan. Like that would be. Think of the level of optimism we'd all have, Sean, if we're sitting here doom and gloom, thinking of Wednesday possibilities potentially being that first game in the SEC tournament a week from right now on Wednesday, versus jumping all the way up to that 4 seed line and starting on Friday.
It would completely change. It would completely change the outlook of going into next week, from just the confidence side, the excitement side, and would just change it entirely. If you can get a win on Saturday, I think anytime you can go into the SEC tournament on a victory, especially being able to beat a team the quality of Florida, it would do a lot of good for not just the team, but for the fan base. And I think the energy in Nashville would go to another level too.
Yeah, we'll see. That's the hope. Quick thing before we get out of here. Mark Pope makes the visit to Philadelphia to check out Dink Pate. Any thoughts on a very good player at the G League level right now? I have some takes that kind of frustrate me about his handling of this, but generally speaking, I'm a big fan of Dink, the basketball player, and I think if the NCAA, if they can get some confidence from the NCAA that he'd get cleared, I would love that addition, and think he could be a plug and play guy for the Cats next year.
Yeah, I would like it a lot too, and just given. That's just where we are in college basketball, right? Like, recruiting has entirely changed, and and how you can recruit and the options that you have. Like, I think it would be a big thing for Kentucky, and I think it would be a nice start on what next year could possibly look like, and to see that Mark Pope is doing that on the heels of preparing for Florida and other things. Just, it shows you the sense of urgency to kind of get this thing right for next year. You're wanting to cap off this year the best that you can, but I know right now in the back of Mark Pope's mind, not even the back of his mind, Jack, it's probably at the very front, and the thing he's thinking about the most when he goes to bed at night is this season's not going to end the way that we wanted it to. We probably don't have the group to go and do what we want to do and the goals for Kentucky basketball, but I've got to do something to make sure that next year gives us that opportunity. And I think that's probably his first priority, honestly, is building out next year. And that's a way, hopefully, to take a step towards that.
Now, before we wrap up, I will say, just with that recruitment, the Jason Hart factor is very real. He was an Ignite guy, part of that first big Ignite class that Jason Hart assembled and recruited all these guys. So there's a very tight relationship there. The chemistry is very real. That's something that I would monitor and keep a very close eye on. I am totally in support of this move. I remember following him in high school and seeing his high school recruitment at the time, and if Kentucky was going to throw its hat into the ring and all those sorts of things. I was a fan. I think he'd be a great college basketball player. I think he would come in and be able to do some really impressive things from day one, playing for Mark Pope. So I am all in if this is the path that Pope decides to go down and he's able to pull this off. He's going to be expensive. Like, that's something that we should all be aware of. I think Jacob Polachek said on KS Board he has a top 10 high school, like the class of 2026 in the high school path, a top 10 recruit price tag. So, that we're talking 7 figures. He would be expensive. But in terms of talent and production, he would fit right in. He'd be able to be a, kind of an all SEC level talent. And for those reasons, hey, go Cats, baby. I'm all the way in. What frustrates me about this, and again, I'm rooting for this. I want him to be a Kentucky Wildcat next season, is we are 6 weeks away, 6 weeks removed from Mark Pope standing there on his high horse at the podium at Rupp Arena, talking down and pointing and saying, NCAA, make sure that you keep this game sacred. And in the middle of the Charles Bediako stuff with Nate Oates in Alabama, and you may lose in court, but NCAA, you can still control who goes in and out of the NCAA tournament. You are the one that holds that power. Because of it was at the time the easiest thing in the world to dunk on Nate Oates for making the dumb, polarizing, whatever adjective you want to describe as bringing a 24-year-old Charles Bediako back to college after he had played multiple seasons of professional basketball, bring him back for his final semester of eligibility with a 5-5 rule. Just weird. Just that whole situation was bizarre. Do not recommend, do not approve of their handling of Charles Bediako. I'm glad that he's not playing college basketball anymore. All of those things being said, Mark really used that opportunity to kind of stand on his moral high ground about why the rules are the rules, and the NCAA came out in that very specific situation and said, if you signed a professional, if you signed an NBA contract, we will never, ever declare you eligible in our game. Dink Pate signed an Exhibit 10 deal with the Westchester Knicks, with the New York Knicks, in September of 2025. It would not be a total cut and dry eligibility deal for him if he were to sign with a college basketball team and try to make himself eligible. I personally think he would, because he never his eligibility clock is still fresh. He's never played a minute of college basketball. He's never played a minute in the NBA, never signed a two-way deal. He fits into a lot of the check mark requirements that plays in favor of his eligibility. But he did, by definition, sign on the dotted line with an NBA team and sign an NBA contract. The NCAA set the precedent and said, we will not approve anybody that has signed with an NBA team. So I'm 95% sure he'd get cleared, but it really does kind of like, okay, dude, it comes across as desperate because you're missing out on some of the high school kids that you were prioritizing, or maybe thought that you were in position to close on, or could make a move on a reclass kid or something. The circumstances worked against you, and you had to kind of pivot to this situation and kind of go against what you stood for morally to get talent, because it's Kentucky and you need to add talent. I support it. I'm all the way in on bringing it. Hey, if they want to bring in superstar after superstar and add Tyra into the mix, I'm all the way in on all of it. But it comes across as a little icky, in my opinion, for him to be 6 weeks removed from doing his little thing at the top of the podium at Rupp Arena, talking about how bad Nate Oates is for doing that and saying he should be banned from the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, to say that and then come back and put yourself in a similar exact same scenario is probably not the best thing. It does come off as desperate, but at this point, I think Mark Pope being desperate might not be a bad thing, because you just got to put out a winning product at Kentucky, and what 11 losses right now with still regular season game left is just, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make it clear and get my thoughts and just opinion out now that it's hypocritical. Just as it was unbelievably hypocritical when John Calipari was complaining about Bruiser Flint and my friend Bruiser Flint at Drexel is getting all of his players stolen from and this nasty, gross grad transfer portal. Ew, yuck. But Julius Mays, if you're available, man, all right, screw it. I guess I'm in. Come on, Julius, you can come on. That was totally hypocritical too. I'm just wanting to point it out that if we're gonna say that John Calipari was unbelievably hypocritical at the beginning of the transfer portal era when he took Julius Mays' commitment after telling everybody and their mother that was wrong for college basketball, we can agree to disagree on this one too and say that Mark Pope is being a hypocrite by pursuing Dink Pate. But with that, I sure hope that he ends up as a Kentucky Wildcat because he's a damn good talent, and I think he'd be awesome as wearing the blue and white. And I hope it all unfolds. So, any parting words? Anything that you want to need to see this weekend outside of a freaking win for the Cats?
I mean, I would love to see a win. I would love to see kind of just a moment for Kentucky fans at Rupp Arena to enjoy something, to beat a really good opponent, a team that I think is capable of getting to that final weekend in the NCAA tournament. I think that would be what I would want to see, but just some sense of a pulse going into SEC tournament to kind of get us all excited about it.
Yep, I'm the same way. I need to see a win. I'm not expecting it personally, but I need to see one and just make us feel better for how things unfolded there in College Station and build some real momentum going into Nashville. 1 week away potentially from our trip down there. It's going to be a good time. Got some big news to announce when we get down there. Maybe a live remote once we get there on Broadway. Some good stuff here for Sources to Say. We're excited for it. Make sure, BBN, keep your eyes and ears peeled for that one. But before that, make Parlor your game day destination from award-winning pizzas like the Doctor or fan favorite Hot Honey Pepperoni to Parlor's famous house smoked wings and extensive craft beer selection. Parlor has a menu that will please the whole family. Their location on Harrisburg Road is just a short drive from Rupp Arena. Don't miss out on their great happy hour coming Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 p.m. to enjoy discounted pints, cocktails, and starters. Parlor is looking forward to celebrating 2 new locations during the first half of 2026, coming soon to Lexington, Hamburg, and Richmond, Kentucky in mid to late March. Whether you're sipping a handcrafted cocktail or sharing one of the signature pizzas, Parlor is a place where great food and good times come together naturally. So for Jack, for Sean, make sure you go subscribe. KSR Plus, make sure you're subscribed right here. Like, comment, all of those good things. We will see you next time. Go Cats.